Okay, so today I wanted
We
to,
are going, we are going ahead with it. Okay, yeah.
right, so,
I thought we, yeah,
no, sorry, you were saying something?
I thought we would wait for some more people, but we are
No,
going
no,
ahead with it.
we'll just go ahead and then everybody, because today I think everybody will watch this video. And once it's done
Hmm.
today, then next week is going to be the 31st. So chances are people are not going to be around. So maybe the
Yeah,
31st we can have the day off, but today I'd
yeah,
rather
yeah.
just do this.
I,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, I'm just gonna put a time blank so that I'll just shut the video for a little bit so that I can edit this portion and then I
Sure.
can have the rest.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so today I wanted to make use our floral theme to make this set of portable calendars. So, since we've been doing lots of flowers and all, and we've also done graphic flowers, we've done realistic flowers, I just wanted to show one kind of application for the flowers. So, I've shared images of this bouquet, two bouquets, in fact. There's this one, and there's this one to give us some kind of idea of how bouquets are made. And using this as inspiration, we will make some of these flowers and maybe some other flowers and create calendar pages, which then you can display like a bouquet. So I'm gonna show you a small sketch of what's to be expected. So we don't go in completely blind, and then that'll also help us plan our illustrations. And you can sketch this part with me, so you can also practice how to create.
And
Uh,
should I do it on the fair sheet or the sheets
no,
that,
do it in the book. Do it in the book.
okay.
So this becomes like a sketch of what we want and what we can do. This part is
Okay.
also really important. Most people don't do this, the sketching of the idea on paper and immediately get
Mhm.
into the craft itself. So you've not actually given thought to how everything is going to come together. So let's just
Yeah.
practice that one little bit as well.
Anyway, I find it a little difficult to visualize the final, the painting or the work. So, not just painting, in anything else, any creative thing, I just tend to go with the flow, keep adding elements, and I never know how it's going to turn out. So, that
Okay.
is something that,
So then this is the perfect exercise for you. So this is how our design is going to look. Now, this is not my original design. I have seen this online on Pinterest and several other places. So I'm trying to recreate it in my own way. I have not gone and attended some workshop about this. So there will be a few things that we are going to have to think of and also work out some possible options. So the idea is to have a calendar which is about in a shape like this. I'll use a pen for this so you can see it better. I'm rounding off my edges just so that the rectangle looks a little more pleasing. And we are going to draw a bunch of flowers so that this calendar looks like a bouquet. So we can have flowers like these. We can make some flowers like this, one kind of flower, maybe also on the paper a little bit.
Oh.
Okay, this is going to be one sheet. And then the rest of the sheets, the calendar part is all going to be the same size, one on top of the other. But there will be other flowers that will peep out from
Mm-hmm.
behind. So each layer is going to be some kind of maybe a different flower.
Mm-hmm.
And once we visualize it like that, then we can also plan for what flowers come where. So I'm using different kinds of flower motifs. Some of these I'm using from the the bouquets that we have, and some of them I'm just imagining. So we have four different types of flowers. We have something that could be um, a I don't even know what this is. I can see it in one of the. It's like a dahlia zinnia type. So I'll make these bigger on the side so you know what this will look like once it's expanded. Then we have some tulips and some maybe an orchid or even a lily. So the calendar, obviously, if it is cut out of paper in this manner, may not stand on its own. So we need
Mm-hmm.
something on which we can put all of this. So the options are that we can cut out maybe two pieces of cardboard or the same drawing paper kept like this, on which then we can keep the calendar, or we can make a stand, which is I'm just going to show you a stand. I'll find it. Sorry.
Hi, Susan.
Yeah, so we have
Hi, Swati.
stands like these available in craft stores. So you can hoist your calendar on top of this. Maybe make a little lip at the bottom so that the pages don't slip out. But the idea is to have 6 sheets or 12 sheets that will fit in this much space, which will have the calendar in a small space like that and the flowers sticking out on top of it. So all of this has to do, we have to do all of this in an A5 size, which means that the calendar is going to be about this big and all the flowers are going to come above this point. So that is why the A5. Usually in a calendar, you can always also have a 6 page calendar and you have the same design reversed. So you have the
Mm-hmm.
design on one side and then the same bouquet can be reversed. But in our case, because our flowers are going to be cascading, we could also have the next flowers that stick outward like that. It would be nice to make 12 pages. Anyway, you're going to make 12 different flowers for this. So you can build those 12 pages. So let's say for January, we we choose a red colored flower, and using a scale we can measure how big our flowers need to be and how big our calendar can be. So an A5 size sheet is just an A4 cut in half. Let me just make a dummy on one sheet. You can use some old paper for this also, just to work out the sizes. Now with paper, depending upon the thickness of the paper, you have a certain stability. So if you want the paper to stand like this, an A4 size paper is not going to stand on something this small. It is going to topple over. So an A5 size works brilliantly. In that, if the bulk of the calendar is at the base, then the weight is at the bottom, supported by the stand, and the flowers are just wispy little things that stick out, reducing the volume of paper that this stand needs to support. So, what we can do is measure till about this is going to be about 8.25 inches. So we can measure till about the bottom 3 inches or 3.5 inches and make our calendar in that space. So in this, I'm just going by this stand right now because it'll definitely give me some support. And this is easily available. So 3.5 inches from the base comes somewhere over here, which is well below the top of the stand. The top of the stand is at about 4 inches. So 3.5 inches is about 9 centimeters. Now, whenever we are doing something like this, ideally you should leave some room from the side. One who doesn't want to start from the bottom edge. For whatever reason you feel the design needs to move a little bit, you should have some space to move it. So let's leave 1 centimeter from the bottom and measure up to 9 centimeters up. So mine, I'm measuring it from 12 over here just for the number and bringing it up to 3 centimeters. So this is 9 centimeters, that's about 3.5 inches and 1 centimeter extra. Now we can join this and give ourselves the area in which we need to fill the calendar. At every point, keep checking that you've got the measurement right. So now for today, you'll just have to go with my measurement, and then later on, you can put all of this on your own stand. Sideways, the distance is about 15 centimeters, but we can cut that down as well to uh, maybe 13. So 1 centimeter from the left, 1 centimeter from the right. And then extend that line all the way to the top so that you know how much space we have on the top as well. The boundaries from the side. And for the calendar part, we will make a mock calendar here so you know how many rows and columns you actually need. Let's start off with we've already written January. We need to write the year, so we write 2026. And then you start with Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So I've tried to fit the letters like this. Now, if you are unsure about this, if you've written J here and 26, the 6 over here, find the space in the middle where you can write the W, align the S with J, the other S with 6, and then find space for two more letters somewhere in between. This is going to be a handwritten calendar, so a few spaces here or there, it won't matter. This is anyway just in rough to calculate how much space we need. And now we can start writing the dates. So, what is today? Is the 23rd, so 31st is going to be a Wednesday. That means 1st of Jan is a Thursday. Am I right? Is that correct? I think so. 1st of Jan is a Thursday, yes. Okay, so now we can start writing the dates. If you have a red colored pen, then you can write Sunday in red. So 1, 2, 3, 4 will be Sunday, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and so on. So this is how our calendar will look. This is good enough. So we will need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 columns. Except for February, because usually February fits in within just 4 columns. And if you have an extra day, like for example, after making these 7 days, suppose January were to start from Friday, we wouldn't have had space for 31. This 31 would have come here. So you can fit in all the numbers and dates within about 7 columns by 7 rows, including the name of the month and the year. So now we need to make a template on this where we can make 7 rows and 7 columns, uh, and we can spread them out horizontally. So we have this space is 13 centimeters. So you can mark the center, that's about at 6.5. We make the division of the space pretty much like how we divide all our pages. You make this at 6.5. And then on either side, we have to make uh,
Aditi, could you repeat that? So I have my paper is not 8 inches. So the space that I have is less than what you have. We've just divided the space into half.
yes, yes. I have left 1 centimeter from the side and I have divided the space into half.
Yeah.
So my purpose
Okay.
of this division is so that I can create the space where we are going to write the letters on top of the line. I'm not making a column as yet. We can always do it that way also, but sometimes
Okay.
when we have odd numbers to make, it helps to make the line on which you want to center the letters. If you want to make columns, that is also easy, and we can do that as a second part. Okay, then from on the left, we you can make this as a, I'll tell you my trick. I don't go by exact measurements, especially when it's something like this, 6.5 or something. That's crazy. But I will look to see if I can make 1, 2, 3, 3 and a half measurement over here. So suppose I were to say make a take 1 centimeter as the column I want to make, and if I mark it at three, 3.5, then I would have 1, 2, 3 columns of 1 centimeter, and half of the column coming towards the center, right? This is too tiny. So what if we make it 1.5? What if we make it 2? 1, 2, 3, but that's not going to be enough because our total is 16. So it's a matter of trying to find something in between. So if we do 1.5 from the left, then it comes to 3, 3 to 4.5, 4 to 6. So if we find the spot between 4.5 and 6, then we can get that division. Do you get what I mean, or am I complicating this even further? Maybe I'm just complicating it further. Let's just do it visually. So go to any one side where you have a line and um, you mark the first point where you are going to draw Sunday. It can't be the edge, it has to be a little inside. So just mark it arbitrarily, and then the space in between this line, not the edge, this line and this line, divided visually into two parts. So we get Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then use the same measurement for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and make sure that the Saturday and Sunday are inside the edges. If this looks too spread out, bring everything just a little bit closer to the center, erase these lines, make new lines. So all this is supposed to be very free. It's not meant to be uh, too precise, and that's the whole point of making things by hand. Now let's give us some space from the top for, let's measure this. This is 9 centimeters. So maybe horizontally we can make 7 rows quite comfortably. So make a row at 1 centimeter each. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is the bottommost line. We need to have a line away from the edge. This is the border. So this is the base, and above this we have 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And in the space above, this is where we can write January, February, and so on. So just check that you have a grid now. Where you've got a baseline to write the numbers and letters, and you have the center line on which to write the numbers and letters also. Center of where you are going to write. It's the letters are not going to come in between, they're going to come on the line itself. So we basically marked the point at which all these have to be written. In some ways, this becomes more accurate because when it comes to writing numbers and you're writing them in a column, the numbers can shift from one side to the other within a column. With a point given, it's easier to write on that particular intersection. Okay, now with a pencil, let's just repeat how January is written. just the dates part. So we've already got, if we write Sunday here, 4, 11, 18, 25 will come much higher. So Sunday is going to go lower, one row lower. So the first row or the first line is going to be reserved to write the month. Start from the second line. Here we write Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and so on. Then we leave a gap immediately after S, and then we make 4, 11, 18, 25. Everything fits perfectly, and we can write January here. And 2026 can be written at the end of this first line, and you could actually write it in reverse so that you make sure that your letter aligns to the last intersection. So this is going to become our template for numbers and for letters, and also to some extent for the flower design. So we need to make the lines dark enough for us to be able to see through this. You can use a dark marker and mark the horizontal line below January up to half mark, and then 2026 up to the end. And you could just make these dashes to plant your letters and numbers on top of this. The paper we are using is pretty thick, so you might have to use a glass table or a backlit board, or hold these papers against the light to be able to see this. See, if I hold it against the light, I can at least tell where the dashes are. Okay, this part is done. Now also mark the border. Like this. So that when you are placing your paper, you know where the exactly where the measurements are and where we need to cut the paper from the sides. Okay, so I'm going to use my light board now so you can see how to proceed. The first flower we are going to make is just going to be a nice big flower somewhere over here. So, one good trick really is to draw all the flowers on your template. So, let's say we draw the first few flowers over here. This helps in sizing. Maybe the first flowers can also stick out of this border a little bit. So we have three flowers here. So the page, the January page is just going to have flowers over here. Then the next flowers can be for February, which will be somewhere here. Maybe a different colored flower or a different type of flower. Then you have a third flower. You can change the color, you can change the form. Maybe you can make something like carnations. Actually, I'm not particularly fond of carnations. I'm just going to ditch that. Maybe something like this. And each of these will have their own leaves so that they look, even individually, they will look nice. Maybe a few sprigs sticking outward like this. And then the fourth one could be maybe something like a tulip. Now, the flowers that we are going to make are just going to be visually pleasing. They don't really need to be 100% accurate to real flowers. They just need to look pleasant for our purpose. Now, once we have this in mind, we can work on the structure of the flowers. So, let's say the first flower is a flower that fits in a circle. Second flower fits in a circle. Third flower fits in a circle. The final last flower is in the shape of like a tulip. So the first flower, I'm looking at the second bouquet that or the first bouquet, sorry, that I've sent you, and there is a flower at that position, which is basically just a bunch of pollen in the center, and then it's got petals like these. So I am already using the technique of converting flowers into graphics that we did last week. So this is the flower, and we could probably have long leaves like this. Now, since it's a bouquet, you could also consider giving it a stalk. And then if we are giving it a stalk, maybe the stalk can have some leaves as well. So now I am thinking of drawing it like this. The next flower can be similar, or we can go to the second bouquet, which has something that looks like Dahlia zinnia kind of thing, where you have multiple petals like these, which can be really painful to draw. So what you draw is the silhouette of these, and we are going to paint all of these, so you don't really need to draw them very accurately in pen, just giving enough sense of the flower. Make that on a stalk as well. And many of these have got leaves that are like this, multiple, which also look really nice. Another version of this flower can be drawn where the petals are pointing upward. So this is almost like a semicircle, and then you have more petals from the other side. maybe a second stalk will also do. So since these flowers are all coming on individual pages, you can decide what flower you want. It doesn't have to be any of these. It can be flowers from your garden, perhaps. It could be different kinds of the same flower if you're doing roses or something, and that can become a bouquet. Okay, the last one. Let's maybe try a rose, a simple rose like that. So start with just C shapes that go all over, all around, and make some wiggly lines like this. Then give a curl on the petals. And we know how all roses are. You can have a stalk coming down like this. Roses often have 3 or 5 leaves on their stalks, and sometimes there's a little rosebud with a little leaf sticking out. And instead of the tulip, maybe you can make a flower which is more of a bunch of flowers. So I'll erase this one so I can show you a different variety of flowers. So these are not clusters, these are individual large flowers. But how about we make a cluster? So you have a stem on which you have some buds that grow like this, and then you have some opened buds, and then those become flowers. Some point sideways and some point towards you. And as you come further down the stalk, you can see more and more open flowers. And these will have their own leaves coming out like this. Once a structure is made, it's much easier to convert this into line art. I'm deliberately making these lines very loosey-goosey because I want our bouquet to look like it's a celebration of illustration, not like a realistic floral bouquet. Because that is something that you can buy and put. This is something that you can't buy, and it needs to be celebrated for all its uh, character and individuality. Right, so we have all our elements thought out, and we'll make the first 4 pages of the calendar with these 4 flowers. Okay, all right. Now, on a light board, I can see where the lines are. And like I said, you can use just a window uh, pane, paste the template onto a window like this, and then go and keep your A5 size paper on that. And first, in pencil, mark the corners, the edges of our frame. We are definitely going to cut along this side, but the top need not be cut on this line. That we can decide later. So I've marked these 4 corners, 1, 2, 3, 4. Later on, we will join these with a line and cut them off. Now let's try writing January. you can write right on top of the black line. 2026 Sunday, Monday. Now, when you are writing this, try and write it as if this were in fair but very light. So, test out the lettering that you're going to use in your calendar. When you're writing double letters, double numbers, you can write it on both sides of the line so that it centers with the number above. So, this is something, Swati, I hope it helps how to think of compositions and designs in rough, work out your thought process in pictures, and then start making your final work. Now, when I remove the sheet, you can see everything is clean. I've not had to make lines on each sheet. Everything looks really neat and tidy. The big mistake many times we do as beginners is we will mark this on every sheet, and then we have to erase on every sheet. That's totally avoidable. Okay, going back. Now, once we have drawn this, we don't even need the template to mark the position of the flowers. But I just want to use it because it's just a better practice to do so. This is where I'm going to make the flowers. And the idea is that I'm going to make these flowers and then we are going to cut around this all the way till here and then cut this out. So January is just going to be this much and this much cut out. Okay. All right. Now let's take the next few sheets as well, cut them up and do the same thing for Feb, March and April. There is something to be said about assembly line production. Assembly line production is when you take one thing and you repeat one step of the process for everything and then come back and do the next step and the next step. Because I have found that one's efficiency really is high when you're doing one task repeatedly over and over again. So if we now have to start with February, you have just done the page for January, you know exactly what you have to do. And the best bit is, again with assembly line production, each task can be distributed to different people. If you feel you want to also keep the lettering uniformly spaced, you can create boxes over here as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, right up to December, so that every time you keep your sheet here, you can see the boxes and you can write the letters within the box. That's up to you. On the base template, you can make any number of lines or guidelines so that you can guide your letters to be in a certain way. Right, so after Feb, Nietzsche, we write S and T, W, T, F, S. This is again something people struggle with. there are two T's, there are two S's. Should we write a TU for Tuesday, TH for Thursday, and all? I mean, come on. The T that comes before W is going to be a Tuesday. The one that's going to come after W is going to be a Thursday. If they don't get that, then maybe they don't deserve this calendar. Let's not dumb things down. They'll figure it out. All right. So now let's look at where January has ended. It's ended on a Saturday. So let's start on Sunday. One, two, three. This is going to be a very nice, tight month. I love it when a month starts on a Sunday, especially a February, because everything finishes most efficiently.
Aditya, are there any heart-shaped flowers for February?
There are heart-shaped flowers, but they are like a drop heart something. Let me just quickly look while you make the page for March and April. I'm sure we can find something. I think there's something called, yeah, what was this called? They're very pretty looking flower. I would have just put roses, but this one, it's like a vine and it's got a like a heart dropping. Very pretty. Let me find the name and I'll share the picture anyway. Oh, it's called a bleeding heart. All right, so the bleeding heart looks like this. It's more like a vine. So we have to figure out whether it works for our composition. We can probably draw it coming from the right here like this. And I've shared a picture on the group. You can see we don't have to draw this entire cluster, but you can draw them like this. Draw the cluster, uh, the stalk like this. Oh, 1 second, I'm just going to take a short break. I think I've yeah, sorry about that. So the it's quite a pretty looking flower. It's got a shape like this, like a regular heart, and there is like a droplet coming down. I generally prefer not to use flowers like these because in photographs they look nice. In our pictures, when you make an illustration, it tends to look like a little bit of Alice in Wonderland. But what the hell? Why not? So I've drawn the hearts first, and then I'm going to join all of them together with the stalk. And the leaves are really pretty on this one. They come out almost like a prettier version or a bigger version of coriander. So we can draw them like this. And also, because it has to go on a page, we can draw some leaves sticking outward so that the composition looks good on its own. It does not necessarily have to be part of the whole calendar to look good. So at every point, it will help to consider what comes before it and what comes after it. So if we've got our January flowers till here, if we want the February flowers to be visible, maybe this is where they need to be. And I guess maybe turning them around would make more sense, not turning them inward as much as outward. So a bouquet would probably move from the left to the right outward. If I pull this inward, I'm afraid it might look
Hmm.
like these two stalks are placed like this rather than in one vase. So,
Or we should maybe just stick to roses because in the at the top these tiny things, I don't know how it'll look because as you build up the calendar.
yeah, but no, it's okay. If we don't like this one page, we'll just substitute it with another February page, and you can give people a choice which one they like. So January ends somewhere here. So from the right, we can draw this little stalk coming like this. Um, now we can also bring this flower inward, and there can be things behind the page of um, January that's hidden. So we don't want to make it very cut to the
Mhm.
exact size. So here's our flower. And also, secondly, if there are things like this happening, you can always shift the 2026 over here. Or in the case of February, we have an entire line at the bottom. So you can also do this. Conventionally, this is frowned upon because you want to have some uniformity in design. If you've made January 2026 like this, then February 2026 must come like that. But there is something in me that says if there is a convention for printed design, it's usually for mass production. It is usually for masses, and masses are assumed to be dumb. So if this is for you, you can design it based on your level of intelligence. So if you move the 2026 from the top to the bottom for the sake of design, I think that's a compromise we can make. All right, so this is February done. Moving to March. For March, we can make these flowers, and then maybe for April, we can make these flowers, and then for later months, you could probably have the sprigs coming outward. Let's mark the date first.
Aditi, after we paint this, are we going to cut out?
Yes, yes, we are going to cut out.
Okay.
March and Feb usually have the same days except for a leap year. So you can omit writing all the numbers till 28 And then on the last line, you can write 29. This is just a speedy way of doing this. Or you can also write 7, 14, 21, 28. So you know what numbers are coming where. Then 29, 30, and 31. So that you know where April begins. Right, April begins on a Wednesday. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 14, 21, 28, 29, 30. So this is just a quick way of getting all these numbers in. If you are unsure of yourself, please go ahead and write all the numbers so that later on you don't need to worry with if you make mistakes. This happens to me several times. I'll write 7 here, then I'll write 7 here again. It's just how my brain sometimes works. But I'm just showing you a shortcut version so that we can proceed to the illustration. Now, this part you will know how to go ahead with, right? So we finished Feb. Now we'll do March. And for March, we'll do those big flowers. It will help to know how tall the flowers in February are going to be. They're somewhere over here. So March flowers can be just right behind them. We have only so much space, so these flowers are not going to be too separated. They are going to overlap quite a bit. And then April, maybe let's put some roses for April. I really enjoy making those roses. But we also have to pay attention to the color. Yeah, I think this will go. I'm just gonna do it anyway and then see whether it works or doesn't work. So for all the flowers, I am drawing stalks. So that they look like they are coming out of a bouquet and they don't just end at where the calendar ends. However, this is going to be clean cut, so that might not be a bad idea also to just have the cut part there. Right. Now let's start the painting. I'll get myself some water. Shall we begin drawing the flowers? I'm going to make an abstract flower based on what I see in the first illustration, first reference image of the bouquet. So the center part is just going to be a few lines marking the center in a radial manner like that. And I'm not keeping them equidistant. That tends to look rather boring. And the flower in the center should be the more prominent flower, and then these two are going to be in the background. I want this center flower to not be hidden by anything. Now let's draw a line to mark the cut mark. And let's experiment. What if the stalk were to just end at this cut mark? Maybe that might make the calendar look cleaner. And also, those stalks coming into the page, they don't have any place to go except through all these numbers and letters, and that might not look too clean. Now, for that matter, this block could easily be converted into something like a bowl that is keeping all these flowers as a almost like a flower vase. That's an option you can choose as well. So once we decide on this, you can then make the leaves popping out from here, and also maybe a few leaves, not going too high, just a few leaves like that, so that even if you were to just look at this page, it looks sweet. I'm using a micron pen to make this drawing because then we can just paint over it. We don't have to worry about erasing those lines. Get rid of all the pencil lines in the flower. And let's put down some color. So let's start off with putting some gamboge in the center. And a mix of orange and scarlet to just go around all the petals. You can merge them also. I quite like making flowers that merge into each other, or the colors are merging into each other. Simply because this color merge is so easy to do in watercolor, and how these colors then interplay with each other makes the painting look even more charming. Now, since we are going to enjoy each page individually along with the flowers of the other pages, you can choose to whatever colors you want to for the title of the page. You can use blue for January, or just a scarlet as well. I'm going to try scarlet and let's see how that works. And I'm going to paint this part because I really enjoy painting letters and numbers. And like I said, at one point, only one page is going to be visible. So you could also experiment with lettering styles if you want, a different style for each of the pages. I'm going to keep 2026 in a different color. I haven't decided which one. And again, with numbers also, you can use sketch pens or watercolor, whatever you're comfortable with. So I'm writing the, the numbers also with a brush. And the rest are going to be in black, but written with a brush, or you could also write with a brush pen. So, the fun bit about making calendars for yourself is that you can make them choosing the aesthetic that you enjoy. You can bend the rules, you can look forward to seeing each page each month differently. So you can change how the calendar looks as well. Instead of Sunday, Monday, Tuesday horizontally, you could have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday vertically. I mean, really, it's up to you. I enjoy a certain amount of predictability, and I would probably have more fun with the stuff that I make on top. So instead of flowers alone, I suppose for each month you can decide a different element. So, say for example, somebody's birthday falls in May and they really enjoy sweets or something. There's no harm in just making one page full of sweets that just comes and sits between the flowers. Why not? Or somebody enjoys Iron Man, just make a mask of Iron Man for that month. And Iron Man sits between flowers. So, for each person in your family, you could choose a different motive and make a really quirky calendar out of it. For the second layer of the flowers, I'm just adding a little extra shade of crimson and scarlet, making maybe a few lines coming towards the outside, but I'm still trying to keep it fairly loose. And use a mix of sap green along with a slightly muting color. raw umber or cobalt blue to make the leaves. I prefer that my leaves are not exactly sap green in color and also not painted flat. So I will often change the color midway. This is something that I've had since I've been a child. Whenever I've drawn a leaf that has two sides to it like this, I've somehow just hated making them just the same color. Although in recent years, I've completely forgotten that. So I'll find a way to either put some kind of shadow underneath the flowers, or one side will be one color, the other side will be another color, or a second layer, or something like that. Maybe that was, as a child, my version of being an advanced artist, that you don't keep your leaves all the same color. Who knows? We could use a cerulean glue to write 2026. Now, leave it to dry. Let's take at least February and then we will cut all of them together. I'm not going to make the numbers right now. I'm just going to paint the flower. These bleeding heart are most, I think they look more crimson than scarlet, huh? So choose your colors wisely. Maybe a combination of scarlet and crimson might also work. So let's start with the lightest shade on top and then drag that color downwards. I'm applying the paint somewhere right in the middle of the flower, but in a shape like this. Then taking a little bit of scarlet and dragging this further into the heart shape towards the bottom. And then I'm turning this over and dragging the color towards the top with just a wet brush. So I get this nice light highlight on top. See, this is how we can get that. And as the color is just about drying, you can drop in a little center, dark center, right at that V. Oh my god, they're so cute. I love these. I think the leaf color can remain largely the same. I'm using sap green with raw umber. And a couple of leaves I'm going to end right at the edge that is going to be cut. And then one I'm bravely pulling down into the calendar. Let's see how it looks. The stalk on this one is not green, it is like a deep magenta color. So on top of the green, I'm going to make that magenta shade with a combination of colors. This is a combination of burnt umber and crimson. So that along with the green gives us a very deep, rich shade like this. And then use the same color with a thin brush coming straight down into the heart. That should do it. So now I'm going to make the calendar, I guess I'm going to assemble it by cutting the pages of Jan and Feb to see how well our design works. We already have March and April pages ready. You will be able to choose whatever flowers you want to complete these. Now, once the flowers are dried, you can either use scissors or a cutter to cut off this edge. I like to leave a little space around my flowers, so I'm going to leave that much space. And after this, you can again use a scissor to cut around it, or you can use a knife or something like this, an X-Acto knife, to cut along the edge of the flowers. If you've made very delicate lines, you don't have to cut on the delicate line. Just cut around an overall silhouette of that line. There we have it. This is Jan. This is how it will look on my stand. Now, if you want to go even more into detail, then you can, of course, cut all these spaces in between as well. All of this depends on your comfort with the cutter. That's it. And I'll just quickly cut February as well, so we can see how the two look together. That's February. And if we were to place them next to each other, this is how they're gonna look. So cute. Oh my god, this is gonna look beautiful. And you can just round these edges off for some finesse. Done. There you go. How cute. This is gonna look awesome. I'm so looking forward to finishing all 12 pages, and I don't know when I'm gonna do it, but it shall be done. 4 pages at a time every 3 months. That should do it, I think. And that's it. Thank you for joining me to make this calendar. I hope you can make the rest of the pages. The choice of flowers is yours. We have the templates. You can make multiple calendars, you can give them to your friends. And if you keep this calendar safely, you could also use it for next year, where you can change the theme. Instead of flowers, you can do things like food or birds, or even a landscape where you have multiple layers. You can have some grasses in the front, some animals in the background. Furthermore, you could have trees, mountains. It's up to you. Your calendar is your expression. So you can choose how you want to make it, because you have to look at it for the whole year. And if you've liked this video, please hit like and hit subscribe. Send me your comments. I'd love to see the pictures and the output that you have created. And I'll see you again in the next class.